Welcome to Big Life Weekly Series, where we empower high achievers to break free from limits, unlock their natural potential, and live a big life. I'm your host, Robert Acosta, and each week we will explore the strategies, mindsets, and tools you need to thrive, not just in your professional career, but in every aspect of your life. Whether you're a leader looking for a better balanced life, an entrepreneur aiming for sustainable success, or someone ready to take the next step toward your best self, this podcast is your space to grow, reflect, and take action. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello, I'm Robert Acosta. I'm here with Rachel Miller from Happen Dance, a nonprofit dance education organization in Michigan, United States. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited too. So let's start right away so we can capture as much as possible to showcase your business. So, Rachel, can you give us a 90-second overview of what your business does and why you got into it?
Of course. The business is Happen Dance, and it has been around we'll be celebrating our 50th year anniversary
Wow.
in next year, 2026. Um, it's a dance education organization, and we have three facets of what we do. The first is a dance school, and that dance school involves need-based scholarships. So the idea is to make dance as accessible to anyone who wants to come and study it, despite income level. And then we also have a professional company, and it's the oldest professional contemporary dance company in Michigan. And then we also have an education exchange program, which puts teaching artists into the K through 12th grade public schools and aftercare programs. And they go in and they teach dance and movement based on school curriculum. So it gives students a kinesthetic approach to learning rather than just sitting in a chair behind a desk. Those are the three facets of what we do. I've been in the dance community for ever since I graduated from undergrad, actually. I
Okay.
went on to get a master's, but I've been doing this for a very long time. And I started as the executive director at Happen Dance about 3 years ago. I switched career paths. I retired from performing professionally uh, in my early 40s. So here I am now.
Right. So you're a dancer, yes?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, what do you enjoy most about your work in this dance environment?
I think I enjoy especially reaching out to audiences that are maybe not familiar with dance as an art form, and um, reaching out to those folks, people who have not seen the performing arts before. I feel like that has been very rewarding and satisfying. Understanding that movement can express so many different things. And I've used it as a vehicle for myself for a long time in terms of expression. And I love sharing that with other people.
Yeah, that's amazing that you have like two sides. One is to perform and attract people to perform, to be a dancer. And the other way is to convey a message with your movement. So you have an audience. So you have to enlighten your audience and even educate your audience that you are expressing something with your dance, right?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
it's
Yeah,
both ways that you have
both
to be
ways.
working.
Yes.
Right. So I'm just curious, what is the biggest problem or challenge you see in your industry? I know the dancing industry is been for a long time, and
Yes.
it's evolving in different ways. And I know people know it perfectly, and there are people really agnostic about it.
Yes.
So what would say is a challenge for you, particularly your company, your industry? And how are you solving that for yourself, for your clients, and any referral partners that you can have?
I think our biggest challenge, specifically right now, is lack of resources and funding. Funding has been pretty low recently, ever since COVID, actually, for the arts. That has not rebounded in terms of individual donations, business sponsorships, grants, and that sort of thing, at least in the nonprofit sector. A lot of dance companies are nonprofit. So that's been a big challenge, I think, for a lot of people. And weathering that storm. For me, I've just what I've done in order to overcome some of these issues is set up specific other fundraising types of activities. Issues that have caused a lot of this downhill in funding, I suppose, it would be inflation. Inflation has been a big problem for the last couple of years. Housing prices are up, food prices are up, gas prices are up, etc. So that has decreased private donations. It's also decreased the amount of money that is given to foundations, meaning that grant funding is lower. So that's been a difficult storm to weather. I would say the other roadblocks in terms of dance is that we are a kind of a niche community, right? We're very I mean, we're not out. Dance as an art form is not something that is center stage necessarily all the time. You have your bigger companies in bigger cities, like the Ailey Company. You have the Martha Graham Company. You have American Ballet Theater. You have those bigger companies. They're seeing the same challenges that we're seeing on a smaller company. So you think of those companies as the be all end all of dance because they're such a big company and they're so well known. But I could walk down the street, right, downtown Lansing, and talk to the first person I meet, and they've never heard of American Ballet Theater or Albany, So that's always been a challenge in dance, not just Happen Dance. It's all over, at least in the U.S. I will say, in the U.S. That's been a challenge. Yeah.
So, how nowadays more people are actively seeking solutions to achieve better outcomes. So, what makes you unique in terms of people searching for a dancing studio or a dancing career? What makes your business or your organization unique in the way you help them achieve those outcomes they are looking for?
Well, there are a lot of dance studios around. Lots and lots of dance studios. You have people open up dance studios who took ballet when they were teenagers, and then they open up a dance studio. And then you have people who have master's degrees and PhDs in dance who open up dance studios, right? Who have had long professional careers. So it's hard to discern, especially if you are a student or the parent of a student looking for a studio to study at. It's hard to discern where to put your student. What makes us unique is that we teach dance in a holistic, non-judgmental way. We do not discriminate in terms of body type. We do not discriminate in terms of gender identity. We do not discriminate in terms of racial identity. Dance for us is accessible to everyone. We also do not look at it as training to present a polished product to an audience. And we do for our professional company, but for our school, the idea with our classes is to learn, and we believe in a student learning approach. And by that I mean we leave room for creativity, imagination, and we guide our students rather than teach them, if that makes sense. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't include technique and we don't include feedback and corrections. We do, of course. But the idea is to create individual movers rather than cookie cutter movers.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for us, I believe that's what makes us different. And for example, most studios will have a big recital at the end of the school year. We do have a show but we don't put a lot of emphasis on working on the show during the year.
Mm.
That's not our goal. Um, while the kids, yes, and the adults, they do perform, we don't we don't spend the entire class working on that one dance.
Right.
We
So,
don't, I don't feel that you learn a lot if you're just working on one dance all year.
of
You're
course.
learning that dance. That's all you're learning.
And sometimes this is stressful, and that's
Yeah,
opposite that what you want to accomplish with the people.
exactly, exactly. Yes. We
Great.
don't ask that, students spend money on costumes. We have a whole costume closet that we costume them ourselves. So, um, it's not about that final product. It's about the process.
Yes, maybe that ingredient, which I love, to
Hmm.
just to be creative versus being competitive.
Hmm.
That would make it not a sport in the category of sports,
Yeah.
but in a way it could be it's a different sport that you compete with against yourself,
Right.
against your old self, and you celebrate the progress, your personal progress in the dancing, in the movement, and even in your consciousness mentally, because I think there's a lot of mental work that is it
Yes.
go hand in hand, right?
Yes. I've always said I've never met a dumb dancer.
Yeah,
Ever in my life.
yeah,
Dancers are geniuses, in my opinion. um, because they have to, a lot of it is mental work. You have to
right,
overcome a lot of self-consciousness. You have to overcome a lot of negativity. You have to overcome that idea that everyone else is better than you.
right.
So you have to overcome all of that. And you also have to be able to pick up movement and pick up a combination of movements in like 30 seconds. Like I've been to auditions where they've showed us the combination once, a very complicated combination once,
You have to
and we've
grab.
had to perform it,
Wow,
right? So it's really, it takes a lot of mental work. Um,
can imagine.
yeah, it really does.
Well, I guess in all these years that you've been performing and you've been now in charge of the organization in some way, what would you say is the strangest or funniest incident you have experienced while working in your dancing business or in your dancing story?
Well, I have one for you, and I'm not going to say who the choreographer was because
Okay,
it's
no
a
names.
well-known one. Okay.
Okay, no names.
So, something to understand is that artists in general can be eccentric, right?
Okay. Yeah.
There's just something to start with. Um, I was at an audition, and this was in New York, and I made it to the third round of callbacks. And I should preface, I was very young. I was just out of undergrad, um, 22 maybe at that point in my career. And so, as far as auditioning, I wasn't super experienced yet. Um, so I made it to the third round of callbacks, and there were five of us in this round. Um, and this was the first time we were going to actually work with the choreographer.
Mm.
So we're all very excited to see this choreographer because they're well known. I'm not. I'm trying to do this without giving away gender either. This choreographer walked into the audition stark naked,
Really?
no clothes,
Oh,
nothing, and proceeded to give us the combination stark naked. So you can imagine a dance combination can be, it's not always pretty when it's done without clothes on. I'll just put it that way.
I
I'm
guess
trying to
I
be like,
cannot
yeah.
imagine it, but I guess.
It was very, yeah, and I was very young, so I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to do. I did not make that casting call because I was so thrown off by it. But I think maybe that was the point in general, was to see who was be thrown off by this.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I would say that was the oddest story. I don't know if that's so much funny, but it was very odd. I have not experienced anything like that ever since
After that,
that
yeah.
particular audition. So
Yeah, I can imagine. So I think earlier you were talking about a little bit about the trends or what's happening in the industry, but what do you see is coming in terms of trends within the business of dancing, and how you and your organization are staying on top of that, or even above that?
Yeah. Well, I have worked with a lot of college students. I've taught college dance majors for a long time. And I see the trend being right now, especially with the freshmen coming into the universities. The trend tends to be competition dance.
Hmm. Yeah.
So a lot of these kids are coming from competition studios. So what I'm seeing now is that there are less of specific styles being performed. So if you go to see, let's take American Ballet Theater again as an example. If you go to see an American Ballet Theater show, you're going to see a lot of contemporary dance, a lot of what would have been considered modern dance years ago.
Hmm.
You're not necessarily going to see the point shoes and the tutus.
Hmm.
So what I'm seeing happen is all of the styles of dance are kind of being blended. You'll see ballet pieces that have a hip hop influence. The delineation between styles has become murky. And I feel like that is the direction. And the good news about Happen Dance is that we've always been a contemporary company. However, we used to be pretty traditional modern dance. That has changed dramatically now with Happen Dance, and I'm working to change that. Our professional company this year is made up of, we have a commercial hip hop dancer in the company. We have a couple of modern dancers, but we also have one that excels mostly in tap dance. We have a person who excels, who's West African dance trained. So they all come from different training backgrounds, which makes for a really interesting choreographic process. And the product that we put on stage is much different than what we would have done 20 years ago.
Right.
Right. So that's how we're meeting that need, and I actually find it very, very interesting and fulfilling.
So that blend of different kind of styles of dancing, you think is more appealing or opens up the scope of people really being attracted to be patrons of dancing in
Exactly.
general,
I
right?
think it opens up the scope
Okay, so
immensely.
it's a good trend, you would say.
Good trend, yeah. I think so.
Right. Well, it's so many well, not competitors, so many studios that you mentioned that are opening. So at the end, they are in the same industry. So whatever other studios do, it's gonna help or hinder your progress. Not in a competitive way, but as an industry, as the image of the industry. So what advice would you give to someone that is just starting within in this industry, like starting a studio or something? What would you advise in order to really, okay, you're getting into this industry and we have respectful and we have these trends and we work together in a way in terms of image. So what advice would you give someone that just started in this business?
My advice would be to stick with it. And the reason I say that is because there are a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of, um, depending on the decade, there's going to be there's going to be times when dance is well supported, well funded, and you feel taken care of, and there's going to be times when you feel abused. So if it's something that you truly want, you've got to stick with it through those times where you're feeling abused.
All right, so yeah, definitely you can come to the industry. You have to come into the industry with your heart.
Yes,
Otherwise,
exactly.
there's a lot of
If
time.
you do not like, if you don't like the process of dance in general, the process of, say, the rehearsal process,
Right.
right? Or the process of training. If all you like is that performance moment, it's not a good industry to get into. Um, you can spend months and weeks, 5 times a week for 4 months to make one dance, and then that dance is over in 10 minutes when you perform it. So if you don't love the process, it's not a good idea for you to be
That's yeah, I understand. It's like in sports, like the Olympics. I always say that. So they
Yep,
train years and years and years, and there is one moment, and it could be 1 second that
yep,
you do something wrong in that moment. And 4 years, well, you learned so many things, but you didn't get what you wanted. But
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a you have to have a specific mindset
Yes,
that it's not easy to have if you don't have the heart connected with your mind, right?
exactly. Yep. And then
Okay.
my other piece of advice would be, in terms of the way everything is trending right now, is to don't be afraid to forge your own path, because things are constantly evolving and changing.
Right,
We've seen that, what might be hot this week may not be hot next week.
right,
So it's important that you have the confidence to forge your own path and create your own thing,
right.
rather than following what everyone else wants you to do.
Yeah, so you have to have that ingredient of being creative
Yeah,
and enjoy the process of being creative as well. Right,
exactly. Yes.
right. So, what would you say is the biggest failure or challenge you have faced to this point in your life, and how that shaped the way you do business today?
Yeah, okay. That's a really good question. I would say for me, um, it has to do with injury.
Hmm.
I got a pretty bad injury in my mid 20s, um, and I had to quit for a couple of years, and I was about ready to just call it quits at that point.
Hmm.
Um, but then getting through it, I was talking to a counselor, because, if you're training all your life and then you get injured, it can really be mentally exhausting. You know, it can ruin you, basically.
Yeah.
um, After talking to a counselor, one of the things that this counselor said to me was, "You're saying one thing, but I can see by your body language that
Hmm.
you're not being truthful with me."
Hmm.
And that's when I said, actually, dance is what I want to do, because dance is when I'm truthful, movement is when I'm truthful. Um, for those who experience injury, especially early on in your dance career, one, you're going to recover if it's early on,
Hmm.
especially. If you're young, you'll bounce back. Two, everyone gets injured at some point in their dance career, no matter what it is,
Yeah.
right? So you're not alone. um, and three, one of the things that, now that I'm a director, I go into it. For example, we had a dancer in the Happen Dance company who had knee surgery, I believe it was last year. And instead of canceling his contract, I kept him on. I said, okay, I know you have an injury. Most companies would end your contract. We're going to keep going with it.
Hmm.
You're going to be a dramaturge for me.
Right.
You're going to choreograph. You're going to do other things to earn your money, but you're going to stay. And so that's what it's taught me as a director.
Hmm.
If someone gets injured, they are not, that doesn't mean you can throw them away,
Of course.
right? Because when I got injured, my contracts were canceled, and I understand why. I get it.
Hmm.
But I also, that made me want to just give it up at that point. So I've been there, and I think it's made me a stronger director, having
Because
gone
of
through
that.
that. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, you have mentioned different things that I can that can categorize as the one thing that, or one of the things that it's part of your success. But what would you, if you have to choose, what is the one thing that has been most instrumental in your success, you would say?
Hmm. The dance community in general. The
Okay.
dance community, even the international dance community, is a tightly knit community. Um, for example, I studied in Europe, and I've studied in Mexico. with other dancers and completely different cultures, and we just welcomed each other with open arms, and we're the best of friends right away because we share this experience.
Right.
And so the support of the dance community in general, although yes, it can be competitive, there's still so much support. I could go across the world, say I'm a dancer and connect with another dancer, and then that person would be my rock, and I would be that person's rock. That's just how
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so yeah, I really feel like that's what my success has been um, based on, is that support.
Right. That's
You know?
amazing.
Yeah.
So looking at the future, what is the next growth area for you personally and for your business?
I think the next growth area for us is going to be to have own our own theater, and
Mm.
be able to have a resident theater rather than having to rent theaters to perform in, or be invited by theaters, be commissioned by theaters.
Mm.
I would like to be able to direct a theater in general. Um, I think having our own space puts us center stage in the community, especially if it's
Mm.
called the Happen Dance Theater. Um, so that is a big goal of mine, and that's the next step for me. Beyond that, it would be international touring. That's
Wow.
very difficult to do, for even for bigger dance companies. Very difficult to do. Um, so that would be really nice. We do national touring, but not international, and that would be a great thing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, this is a funny question, I know, but if you could have lunch with one person, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Good
Ah,
one.
I know.
This is a really hard one, and I came up with two different people.
Okay.
Um, the first one is Pina Bausch, who is on the poster. Well, she's not on the poster, but it is
Okay.
from the. It's a movie poster that
Uh-huh.
Wim Wenders did years ago. First dance movie in 3D. Um, Pina Bausch, because I would like to pick her brain, and I would love to hear about her creative process and what inspired her with her works. She's deceased now. Okay, and the second person is a little out there. Prince would be another person.
Okay.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, I'm a fan, but that's not why. I think I would want to sit down with Prince because he continually reinvented himself throughout his career.
Hmm.
Um, and it always worked for him.
Wow.
Every single time it worked for him, right? Um, he was
So,
also a genius,
so
but
you want to ask him why or how he did it, how he
yes,
was
how
able to
he
do it
did it, how he did it,
again
because
and again. Yeah.
as humans, we're always reinventing ourselves, right? But it doesn't always work for us. He's an example of someone who it's always worked for. Even when he changed his name to that symbol,
Uh-huh.
people were into it, right? It was so odd, and people were into it. Um, so yeah, I think those would be the two people that I would want to sit
Yeah,
down
that's amazing. So,
with.
well, maybe you can have those lunches in your mind.
Yes,
Well,
they're both deceased, but yeah.
yeah. Uh, Okay, so what is the best way for people to contact you if they like to work with you or discuss referral partnerships?
The best way would be email,
Okay.
or you could use social media to send a message and I would get it. But yes, you can email me. Um, I think that's probably the easiest way.
So what is your email?
It is Rachel, RACHEL, at Happendance, HAPPENDANCE,
Origin. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so there you have it. That's the way to connect with Rachel. Okay, thank you very much, Rachel. It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure having you in this podcast.
This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for joining me on Big Life Weekly series. I hope today's episode gave you the insight, inspiration, and tools you need to move closer to the life you're meant to live. Remember, true success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about how you feel while you achieving it. If you found value in our conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with others who are ready to embrace their big life. Until next time, stay focused, keep growing, enjoy life, and break free.